Sweet surrender as I love, serve, and remember.
We are lighthouses. We are called to be lighthouses. And when does the world need lighthouses now? I think so. I think this is a pretty serious calling. And you want to know something that's really cool that Lynn and I sort of figured out both at the same time in this past week or two? Next to St. Bart's parking lot goes into the local elementary school called Lawrence Elementary School. But I was driving by, and on their neon sign it said a lighthouse school. I'm like, wait, what? And I drove in the parking lot, and they have these two big banners on either side of the gym. We are a lighthouse school. I'm like, this is so cool. We're spreading. And so I looked it up, and it's called it's Teach Me Lighthouse, or Leader in Me Lighthouse. So I looked it up. And it is about every person stepping into their own leadership as lighthouses. How wonderful is that? Because, the very first talk that I ever gave as a minister, way back in 2002, was called Leaders of Light. Because I truly believe that when we connect with that spirit within us, that light that is within us, we automatically start to become leaders wherever we are. And it doesn't mean leader in terms of telling other people what to think, but just by the very light that you are, that you shine, and that you bring to any situation, that can impact the world in which you're living. And sometimes you do it silently. Sometimes it's almost easier to do it silently, but you can also do it proactively. Leaders of Light. So the book that they use when I looked at this book, when I looked them up, is Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. How many of you have read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? It's been a long time. About half of you. So it's a wonderful book. It came out, I think I looked it up, I think it was 1989. So many of us read it, but it was a long time ago. So I thought, I'll revisit it. I haven't gotten past the introductory, but the introductory section is really good. And what I love is that he's talking about a paradigm shift, and that it's not a singular paradigm shift, that we're always going through life with these shifts of how we see ourselves and see one another. And so the talk today is the wow of willingness. And for me, what willingness, we don't need to be willing if we've already mastered something. The energy that we need for willingness is to step into something new. And so all of us on your own path are needing and wanting throughout our entire journey to be willing to step into something new. That takes courage. It's not always easy because it's unfamiliar. If you've already mastered it, you know what you're doing. But the willingness to step into something new, and so what part of that, what happens, the reason why I said the wow of willingness is because often when we start to move in that direction of where we're willing, and it's unclear and we're unsure, and then suddenly it's like, wow, like suddenly you just have this whole new insight. You see something completely different, or you hear something that you've never heard before. It might be just a moment, wow, aha moment, or it could actually change the way you show up in different things. And that can happen throughout our life. And so just to talk about, I love this word paradigm because it's usually a structure of how we see the world, and then it can shift in a moment. And so I've heard this story in various forms over the years. So this might be a familiar story, but it's such a great example of an instant paradigm shift. And that's when, and this actually happened to Stephen Covey. He was on the train, and this father came in with 4 boys, and he sat down, and the boys are just running ragged all over the train, just ah! And the people on the train are just getting really disturbed, and Stephen's looking at the dad, and dad's got his eye closed, and he's not doing any discipline. He's just letting them, and so he's getting more and more annoyed. Often what precedes paradigm shifts is sometimes we get a little irritated. And so he gets a little irritated, and he finally just said, with as much restraint as I said, your kids are really disturbing The people on this train, don't you think you should try to reel them in a little bit, some discipline? And the guy opens his eyes and he goes, oh yeah, I guess I should. We just came from the hospital and their mother died an hour ago. And I don't know what to do. And suddenly, paradigm shift, right? First it's these annoying kids, and now it's like, holy smokes, their mother just died an hour ago. That's how profound a paradigm shift can be, that you're seeing something so clearly from one perspective, and then something opens your eyes and you see it so clearly from another perspective. Are you familiar with the 5 blind men and the elephant? Most of you are saying yes. I'm going to tell it to you anyways, because not everybody does. So the 5 blind men are and the version that I heard was Jack had a book from his school, and it was a big picture book with the 5 blind men. Oh, it didn't say an elephant, just the 5 blind men, I think it was called. And it was a big picture book, and I was pregnant at the time, and so we were lying in bed, and he's reading to Julian the 5 blind men. And so they have one blind man's they're feeling this object, and it's like, it feels like a rope, and they show a rope, and the other person said, no, it's like a trunk of a tree, and they're feeling, and what you see is a trunk of a tree, and you see a rope, and it's a giant wall, and no, it's a hose, and I can't remember what and so then, and as Jack is reading this to me, I'm listening to the book, I'm like, oh, it's an elephant. This always cracks me up. He goes, you just gave it away. He threw the book down. I'm like, you do know it's just a baby. It's growing fetus. Don't think he knows. I won't tell him. I was just excited I figured it out. It's a kid's book. But in so many ways, that's what life is, that we are talking and describing our reality completely accurately. And someone is describing their reality completely accurately. And yet it's all part of the same thing. And so a paradigm shift is when you recognize, oh, there's other ways to see things. And he has I'm sure you've seen we could have done it, but you see a picture of a young lady, and then you see another picture, and then you see a picture of an old lady. And according to what picture you see first, there's a picture that includes both. But you can't see both. What happens if you're only shown one, that's all you'll see when you look at the picture of both. And it takes time to be able to see your eyes to go back and forth to both versions. And he said what's interesting is that after time goes by, when he's talking time within the class, they would come back, and the first thing they would always see is the first picture that they saw. So if you saw the young lady first, that's what you would see. If you saw the old lady first, that's what you see. So we go to our default mode effortlessly, but we can train ourselves to see multiple perspectives. So we want to be able to open our eyes and see from multiple perspectives, but it's also challenging. It also can be uncomfortable and confusing. It's easy to hear it in a children's story. But to give a sense of how strong these views can be about, that seems very simple, I think about the beginning of Center for Spiritual Living, where we teach oneness. That's what it's very clear, the principles are very clear. And yet at one point in the history, organizationally, it's split while Ernest Holmes was alive, because there's one organization, a very strong sense of how they thought a good organization would run. Another group of people felt this is how the organization should run. And I think they still got along, but they were both using Ernest Holmes' teaching, same principles, same oneness, but very different interpretations of how that should look, or the highest and best way. And so these organizations, I think the split happened in the 50s, so it was almost 60 years before it came back together as one organization. And that's when everyone agrees on the same principles. Imagine when you're like coming from different, so this is hard stuff. Even in our listserv, there's people who have very different perspectives of how we should be showing up at this time in the world. And I think they're all valuable, And I think the differences are valuable, but it's very uncomfortable too, because we're searching. I think with all this stuff, we want to find comfort in finding people that at least some similarity. And we find it, but it takes some work. But the key is, as you're becoming a leader in light, is for you to be true to yourself, because what I have discovered, the only way you're ever going to feel at peace is to know what it looks like for you. You don't have to impose it on anybody else. You can find people that resonate with you. You can find people who want to have conversations about differences of perspective, but to know your own sense of light. And part of that journey is uncomfortable. When I say part of the journey, it's always happening through the rest of our life. So as you're growing and becoming a greater and greater transparency of that light, and you're letting stuff go, and you're working this stuff and working that stuff, it's challenging, but in doing that, we become truer and truer to ourselves. It takes persistence. It takes willingness to continue to show up and say, I want to be this light. I was just looking at the Olympics this morning. The United States hockey team won gold this morning. You can tell you're not all big hockey fans. It's the first time they've won in 46 years since the 1980 Olympics, on the exact same day that they won in 1980. You can't plan that stuff, but 46 years. I hadn't realized that. I'm like, that is a long time to be losing. But they never stopped. Every time, there's this constant get better, and it doesn't feel good to get second place or not get the gold for 46 years, but there's a willingness. And for us to be on that journey for ourselves, there has to be a continued willingness that even when things fall apart, even things that don't look well, we continue to show up, but we have to find our own answers. We have that male figure skater, Ilya, Ilya Malinin, and he was supposed to win the gold medal and had all these expectations. And yes, and he fell a few times, and everyone, I wasn't following it, except I got all these articles suddenly about the male figure skater who choked. But people were actually people are different in how they respond to it. But he said it was so hard, the pressure that he was feeling, all the stuff coming at him beforehand. And then I watched this video of neuroscientists telling you what's going on in your brain when you choke under pressure. And I'm like, what a horrible thing if he was him, to watch something like that. But it was just too much. And so then he had an exhibition skate, and it was beautiful. And he said he's changed so much just from that one experience, because what he started to learn, what he learned from that was, I'm not going for medals anymore. I'm just going for the sheer love of what I do, and I'm always going to give my best and strive, but I'm no longer going to go. He says it's too much. They all talk about getting off social media and stop listening to what people say, good and bad, because it's exhausting. To stay connected with who you are. To stay connected with your light. And then we have the beautiful Alyssa Liu. Y'all know about Alyssa Liu from Oakland? Yeah. Gold medal. Watch it if you haven't. It was Thursday night. She's wearing this pretty gold dress. And I mention that because she talks about how much she loves her dresses. Every show she gets to wear a new dress. And what a joy she was. And she had a perfect program. However, at 16, she quit skating. She felt like, she had been to the Olympics, she's got a lot of medals, and sometimes she got 7th or 8th place, but done pretty well, it was work, and it was hard. And finally she said, I think I've done everything that people want me to do. I'm done. And she didn't go back on the ice for 2 years. And then she said she was skiing and realized she was experiencing the same joy that she would experience figure skating without the competition. And then, so she got back on the ice after 2 years, just skating around and doing a couple of, I like this. And so she called up her coaches and she said, I want to come back. And they're like, yeah, maybe at the collegiate level. She goes, no, I want to compete back in the world. And they said, what, really? And the coach said, I did everything I could to convince her out of it, but she had changed. She said, I don't care about the medals. She said that at the Olympics, I don't care about the medals. I'm here to fully express myself, and I want people to see what I have to express. I have stories I want to tell, and I'm going to tell them to the best of my ability, and the medals, pshaw. And she just skated a flawless program, and what the continual comment that I kept hearing was, it was so joyful. She was relaxed, she was in joy, she was so excited for the people who won silver and bronze, and oh my gosh, they were wonderful. And they said, well, how did you feel after you skated and you're watching them? Are you afraid that they're gonna beat you? She goes, no, they were incredible. I was cheering them on. I was so happy to see them, because someone said she had moved from that medal, and when she came back, she said she had conditions. I'm only going to skate as much as I think I need to. I'm not going to overskate or underskate. I'm going to be part of my own creative program. I'm part of that. I'm not going to starve myself. You're not going to tell me what to eat. And like, she had all these things that she took control. Like, this is my journey, and I love my life, and it's not just skating. She just found her light and stepped in it, and wasn't going to allow others to tell her what she should or shouldn't do in order to win medals. And someone said it was like watching art, sports, and art, because she started bringing this very artistic sensibility to it. And I love that. Because as I was thinking about this whole light thing, being a leader of light, and then we have enlightenment, I think of, there's two Suzukis that came into the States around the same time. There's D.T. Suzuki, who came here first, and he was a theologian, and he talked a lot about enlightenment, Zen enlightenment, and Satori, and these great experiences of expansive enlightenment. And then when Shunryu Suzuki came, he came second. All these people came to Zen Center, and like, we want what he saw, we want that enlightenment. And it's like, don't worry about enlightenment, that's nothing. Are you enlightened? That doesn't matter. No, I'm not enlightened. He just took all the pressure off of being enlightened. He goes, I don't care. There's no such thing. Just be present. Do you hear the birds singing right now? That's what matters. And he took all that. It's like taking the pressure of the medals. Enlightenment can be like that. Being a saint can be like that. Oh, I want that. I want to be like a saint, or I want to be enlightened. And then you're striving for a goal, and you have a picture in your head of what that looks like, and usually it means perfection, and you don't make mistakes, and you don't have any fun because you're really serious about getting to your goal, and you'll lose everything just in that striving. You lose the joy of it, the beauty of it. Art is messy. Art isn't perfect, ever. It's always, I have a friend who's been writing a novel for like 10 years because she's always redoing it. I'm like, just finish it. But there's this, because it's ever moving, it's ever changing, all the words, and you can do this, and you can play, and you can, so even if you put a novel out, you can put it out and then change it later on. But this idea of that, and another way I really understood it was a gentleman who was working with couples, and he was working with what he was calling masculine and feminine energy, and how that flowed within a couple. And he said, the way I look at it, he said, a lot of times when we go into a therapeutic session, we look at it sort of in a medical way. I'm going to help you and give you tools that are going to fix you. You're going to learn how to communicate better, you're going to learn how to hear one another, you're going to do whatever, all the different tools. And he said, those are all good, but the way I approach it is more like art. That this is an incredible free flow of energy, and we're going to feel the spirit, and we're going to look at your relationship not as a sterile medical procedure that needs to be, we're going to fix you, but into a beautiful work of art. And how can we create this relationship to be a beautiful work of art? And that's going to require, we're going to make mistakes along the way, and that's a beautiful part of the journey. Just as when Elia fell that was a beautiful part of his journey. That wasn't like a mistake and he has to turn away and become perfect again. That is integrated now. That was integrated into his final program, the very pain that he felt in the falling. It all becomes part of the whole picture. The whole picture. Art includes everything. Sometimes in medicine, the medical point of view, we just like to push the bad side away or the uncomfortable side and fix everything. And when you're sick, that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. But we have to make sure when we're on this spiritual journey, there's no such thing as a perfect person. There's perfect spirit, but there's no such thing as a perfect person. I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. Jesus wasn't perfect. Buddha wasn't perfect. Humanly. Spiritually is another thing. And so to start opening and softening our heart with each other and with ourselves, because it's about your light, and sometimes we feel embarrassed to be that light because we're not perfect. But to embrace that in that imperfection and yet that willingness to continue on, the willingness to keep trying, the willingness to just be gentle with ourselves and healing, because God has never stopped loving any one of us. God has never stopped loving you, ever, ever, and not just you, but all beings on the planet that have ever lived. There is no condemnation in spirit, ever. Nobody. You are all absolutely unconditionally loved right now. You don't have to change a single thing about yourself. You don't have to become that perfect person, even with all your faults. There is light, and there is love. And so we allow that light to enter into those places of the dark parts of ourselves and the good parts of ourselves and become more and more, because the more we do that in our own interior world, and then we say, oh, there's so much darkness out there, it doesn't frighten us as much if we're clear about our own darkness and we've been healing in our own light and in our own presence, and we haven't given our power away to somebody else who we think is perfect. One of the things that I remember shocking me when I was in Prac 1, we had a book called Care of the Soul by Thomas More. And he said something that threw me. He said, you're going to betray somebody and someone will always betray you. And that just irritated me. I'm like, no one's betrayed me and I haven't betrayed anyone. That's a pretty depressing view of the world. But as I've grown, oh yeah, I have betrayed people. People have betrayed me. And what we mean by betray is they don't live up to the expectation that we have of them. We have an idea of who they should be, and they're not living up to it. And we can do that to ourselves. We have an expectation of who we think we should be, and we're not living up to it. How can we be the light? How can we be the light if we're so disappointed all the time in how other people are, especially people we put on pedestals? There was some interesting things happening in the news with people in higher places. I don't know how to even say. You know what I mean. But how do we know how to be with that if we don't know how to even be with our own inner darkness? How do we ever shine the light if we know that we also have all these failings and anyone at any time can just take us down so fast for our failings? Why would I want to show my light? I've had so many people, I don't mean in this community, but just on the journey of becoming ministers, like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be taken down. I've seen too many people taken down. I have, well, I personally think my brother should be president of the United States. But he's like, yeah, no, I have too many skeletons in my closet. There's no way heck I would do that. And isn't it like, oh no, I can't do that. I can't shine my light because people will destroy me. I've always wondered in Harry Potter why she picked the main quality of Harry Potter wasn't some superpower, it was courage. And I thought, yep, to be a light takes so much courage. So it sounds really fun. Be a leader of light, shine your light everywhere you go. But it actually takes such an extraordinary courage to be you, to be that light place. And yet, here you are, saying yes to being a light. Thank you. Thank you for that courage. Thank you on the people in this world who are benefiting because of your yes to being a light. You are making a difference already. It's not something you're just doing in the future. You're doing it now. And then we are continuing to grow in that light. We are all continuing to grow and become that light, and it's an ever-evolving growth that we will have for the rest of our life, but we're here, and we're saying yes. We're saying yes. We're saying yes, and it's so good. Let's pray. To that one beautiful presence and power of light and love, we open our hearts, our bodies, and our minds and our souls. For when we are saying yes, we are saying yes to our highest, beautiful, brilliant love and light. Excuse me. And as we say yes to this beautiful light, this light has already said yes to us. It knows all of our faults. It knows even before we know them ourselves, or before we see them, or before we understand them, or can control them, or fix them, or hide them. All of that, these games that we might play, Spirit already knows. Spirit knows each and every one of us in minutiae detail, and it loves. It loves, and it loves yet again, and it loves again. That love is unchanging. It is the lighthouse. It is that which is stable and will never move. Every single one of us are so profoundly loved and accepted and cared for and nurtured. In all of our divine human imperfections, we are loved. And as we feel and welcome that love and that light within us, we give the grace of loving others on this very challenging journey, and the very joyous journey, and this very beautiful journey, in this beautiful masterpiece of art that we are all part of. Every single one of us, all 8 billion people and the sentient life forms, we are all part of this extraordinary masterpiece. And for every one of us who has said yes to playing our role and part to the best of our ability, with kindness, with gentleness, with willingness, this beautiful masterpiece is fully alive. Everywhere you go, it's not something just when everything is fixed out there in the country and in the divisiveness and all of that. That masterpiece is now. That masterpiece is all of us, all of you, right now. You are that divine masterpiece. You are, with all of you who you are, by saying yes, by being willing to be willing to be willing, we open to the wow. Even with all my imperfections, divine light is. Divine love loves me, and I get to love other people, even though I'm not perfect. I'm far, 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 far from perfect. And yet I get an opportunity to love today. I get an opportunity to love today. Every one of us gets an opportunity to love today. What else is there? We get to love today, this very day. This is the kingdom and queendom of heaven on earth, alive and awake, as each and every one of us. In deep abiding gratitude for all of the beautiful beings of light that populate this wonderful community, that populate this Bay Area, that populate this country, that populate this world. Thank you, thank you, thank you, God. And in deep abiding grace and joy and peace, we let it be. And so it is.
I walk in God in all I do. I walk in God in all that I say.